you want to start off with the G100, man?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a quite an interesting little camera. I was quite excited to actually get my hands on it. You know, I'm a Micro Four Thirds user myself. I really like Micro Four Thirds cameras. I love how small they can be and how versatile and user friendly they can be. This camera from Panasonic has, well, I'm not going to say stumped me, but it's both good and bad. The good is that this thing is tiny. In fact, I reviewed the Olympus EM10 IV not too long ago. That camera was really small. This camera, in fact, is even smaller than the Olympus camera. If I put it up to my iPhone, just so you can see the size of this thing.
Which iPhone is that?
This is the 11 Pro Max.
Mm-hmm.
It
Jeez.
is there, like tiny, and it's barely the width. It's actually a little bit smaller width-wise as well than the phone. So that'll give you an idea on just how tiny this camera is. It's super lightweight. It's actually got a decent size grip on it for a camera of this size. I don't know if you can see that there.
Yeah, we can.
Looks like it's showing up. I can actually grab this pretty well. There's a nice little indent in the top of the grip where your finger can sit. With it being so small, your pinky is hanging off the bottom, but it still feels pretty good in the hand, you know. From the ergonomic standpoint and where the controls are laid out, it's really nice. The top, there's just a few buttons on the, let's see, on the right hand side of the EVF, there's like an instant share button, so you can instantly transfer pictures to your phone. There's a function button which is completely customizable. And over on this side, you have your main control dial. You have your bright red record dial, which really indicates who Panasonic are trying to market this camera to, really hybrid shooters. And then apart from that, on the back, you have a regular little control dial here, which controls your shutter speed. And then your ISO and your focus modes around the dial as well. So it's laid out pretty well, and it's really minimalistic with the amount of controls on the camera itself.
Tell me about that Insta Share button. Like, is it done through Bluetooth? Is it done through Wi-Fi? How reliable is it?
It's been pretty reliable. It's Bluetooth. So if you've got the app open up on your phone, you just hit the button, and then you can select whichever photo you want to share to your phone. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's so much nicer than the S5 then. The S5, I've been able to send like 2 photos and then suddenly it craps out.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, no, it's been nice and stable on this camera.
That's fantastic to hear. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, tell me about the autofocus. Like it is, I'm trying to remember. It's not using the DFD system, right?
I don't believe so. I have had mixed experiences with the autofocus on this camera. In fact, it's been a source of frustration for me. It is contrast detect, which is just like any other Panasonic camera, really. In good lighting, it's rapid, it's super fast, it's accurate, it snaps on and it will track really pretty well. As soon as you get out of anything other than great lighting, the autofocus system just completely dies. It cannot focus on anything. And it's really shocking to me.
What lenses were you using?
This, I used it just with the kit lens that the camera comes with. So this is the 12 to 32 f3.556, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the only lens I used, just because this is the lens that comes bundled with the camera.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people will buy that. Maybe they might move up to a 21.7 or something like that. I'm not sure.
Right, absolutely. And this camera would be perfect for those smaller primes as well. But with the kit lens, the autofocus performance was mediocre at best, honestly. Even yesterday when I was out doing some tracking photography with my dogs in good light, it was keeping up, but it wasn't perfect. It got the job done, but it's light years behind other cameras in this price bracket. The EM10 4 is significantly better. The A6100, which costs the same as this camera, significantly better. Fujifilm X-T200 was better as well in terms of focusing and tracking.
You know, that's really interesting because I'm finding the same thing with the S5 in low light, and it's been so incredibly frustrating. But you know what I've also found? Like for face detection, it tells you that the face and the eye are in focus, but it's not actually. Sometimes it'll focus like a little bit behind. Are you having the same thing?
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's actually worked okay on the eye if I'm really close to my subject. But one of the issues I had with this was I was out on a photo walk one morning and I just wanted to take a picture of some leaves that had turned color, nice contrast in the colors there. The leaves were still, there wasn't a breeze, they were dead still, and this camera would not focus on those leaves whatsoever.
What kind of lighting?
It was at sunrise and the sun was up over the horizon, so the lighting was good. And
Huh.
it just would not lock on. Yeah, and there's been issue. I've had issues with that across the board.
Oh, geez, that's
Yeah,
depressing.
it really is surprising.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about the autofocus. Let's move on a little bit to the build quality. So you said you
Hmm.
like the way it feels in the hand. We know it's not weather sealed,
Right.
but does it feel plasticky still,
It's
or
it feels very plasticky. It's not a cheap feeling plastic. It feels decent. There's no real texture on the body of the camera. It's kind of smooth. The grip is nice. The covering on the grip feels kind of chintzy and cheap. But I mean, it's an entry level camera. It's kind of what I expected. Um, it will survive general use from the audience that it's designed for, I believe.
yeah, no, that makes sense. It's just I
Yeah.
don't know. Like sometimes I feel like for these cameras that they're aiming at like travel shooters and stuff like that, like this with a 21.7 or some other really small weather sealed prime would be perfect for travel.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but like it I don't understand why they didn't do it. Like that's perplexing. And you know, I guess we'll talk about that later. Let's get into the images. I'm gonna
Sure.
share the images that you sent to me. Let me know if you can see this.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So this was before sunrise. It's
Yep.
clearly labeled.
Absolutely.
You know, here's the thing about the Panasonic Micro Four Thirds color rendition. Like full frame, I adore their color rendition. In
Hmm.
four thirds, I feel it's too muted.
And it's very much on the cool side of things as well. A lot of the images I were getting were very, very blue in color.
I gotcha. And then this is
Yeah.
ISO 1250.
It's 1250, also before sunrise. Yeah.
Let's see. You know, that's not too bad.
It's not terrible. Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Yeah, okay. So for high ISO stuff isn't too bad.
Until you get up to 3200 would be the max I would use this camera at.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's ISO 3200. Um, 6400, it images really start to fall apart, which again is surprising to me because I've used Micro Four Thirds cameras for years, and this is possibly one of the worst I've seen in terms of pushing it past ISO 3200. The other thing that really doesn't help this camera is the one feature that really sells Micro Four Thirds for me and to a lot of other people is IBIS. And this camera does not have IBIS in it.
Oh
So
no.
a lot of the times with Micro Four Thirds cameras, if you've never used one, anyone is the IBIS is so good you can slow the shutter speeds down so much and get razor sharp images at slow shutter speeds, so you don't have to crank your ISO up, and you just can't do that with this camera.
So this image right here,
Hmm.
handheld or
No,
tripod?
no, that was resting on a bridge
Oh,
leg.
okay.
Yeah,
No, because I remember you had something similar with what did you review last week? Was it a
A
Sony game?
A7S3. Yeah, I took the cameras out on the same night.
I do the same thing. No, I get
Yeah,
you. I mean, it really helps out sometimes. Um,
absolutely.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can see like the wind rustling the leaves over here and stuff like that.
Hmm. But I mean, we know what these 20 megapixel sensors are capable of, and they can produce some really nice images. Um, and the amount of dynamic, it's a dynamic range test. The first one is just completely unedited. Second image is edited. I brought up how much detail I can bring up out of the shadows. Um, the amount of dynamic range in this camera is really pretty good, and it's the same with highlights as well. You can bring back a lot of detail. So there's really no issue with the sensor. We know what it's capable of, and it does a good job.
I gotta
Um,
say though, this lens has nice character. Like I really like this flare.
yeah, it really does. It's a nice little lens. I just wish it would focus a bit better.
Hmm.
That ISO 6400 as well, but it was in decent lighting.
Yeah, this isn't bad.
No, when you zoom in, you can still there's still enough detail retained. You're not going to be making huge prints of ISO 6400 shots, but for social media sharing, it would be just fine.
Says you, I would make a massive print of this egg. Not huge prints for social media. This is a hot photo. Is this a L monochrome?
That was on monochrome, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's one of the great things that I think a lot of first time camera owners will like about this camera is there's a lot of scene modes that will help you get the specific shots, portraits or nightscapes or long exposures or monochrome. The camera does most of the heavy lifting for you, so it would be good for a first time camera buyer.
Yeah. Does this camera have animal face detection in it?
It does not.
Okay.
Yeah, it does not. Just human IAF.
Gotcha. This is sunrise again.
Yep, that's after sunrise on that one. Like I say, the colors are decent, a little bit on the cool side, but like I say, the sensor is fine. You can create some nice images with this camera once it focuses.
Mm-hmm. That's a major problem though. I mean, listen to yourself. It's like, yeah, you can make some great images with this camera, but you have to wait for it to focus first.
Right. Absolutely. And there were so many shots I missed when I was out using it just because it was hunting on constantly. Not only that, the false positives, it will give you a positive reading on the focus. And then when you check the image, it's completely out of focus.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, I've had that as well too. Would you use this as a secondary camera?
Hmm, that's a tough one. I mean, if I was wanting to keep it all Panasonic, then maybe. If I was just a micro four thirds shooter in general, and I didn't mind using an Olympus camera, I would pick an Olympus camera over this one. That would
And
be in the
that's
same
because
price
of,
range.
yeah, that's because of the performance, right?
The performance, the autofocus performance, and the fact that the EM10-4 has IBIS and this one doesn't. And I think the compromise they made on this because they wanted to really, to go after hybrid shooters is the EVF on this is actually really nice. It's a 3.68 million dot EVF, which is unheard of in a camera in this price range. This camera's $750.
Mm-hmm.
And the back LCD is 1.8 million dots. So the resolution on the screens is beautiful, but I think in order to maybe to keep costs down, they bumped up the specs on the EVF and the LCD and took the IBIS out. Whereas I think they should have kept IBIS in because that would have been better for videography and photography.
Mm-hmm.
And I
No, that
think
makes
that's
sense.
just, I think that was a huge mistake on their part to remove IBIS and just have a digital stave for video only.
Yeah, no. I wonder if they would say something like, well, we had to keep it small. But
Right.
like it's already still pretty small.
Well, the thing is, I mean, it's honestly not much smaller, or it's about the same size as the G85, and that had IBIS in it.
Yeah, that's true.
So, because I was thinking the same thing, maybe it was a space-saving, decision, but it's identical in size to the G85. So, the only thing I can think of is to cut costs. They used the higher grade EVF and LCD and wiped out IBIS.
Now, You're talking about, you're targeting it to, the hybrid shooter and beginners and stuff like that. Does that mean that there's only one exposure dial? Or is there one like over here as well too?
So on the top you have your main mode dial. On the front you have aperture dial,
Uh-huh.
and then on the back you have your shutter control dial.
Okay. Okay. That's easier to deal with then. And then is there a dedicated ISO button?
There is a dedicated ISO button, and the problem I have with this camera is it's so small that if you want to use this one-handed and you want to change the shutter speed or the ISO on the back, you have to really twist your hand into weird positions to be able to hit the button. Otherwise, you have to hold it two-handed to do it. It's not something you could easily do one-handed.
That's really interesting because when I was grabbing the S5 just to demonstrate really quickly, when I was reviewing the A7C, like that thing was tiny, right?
Hmm.
And it forced me to hold cameras in a completely different way. So right now, like this is the way we're used to holding cameras.
Yep.
What I ended up doing is my pinky was hanging off it like this. So you know what I did? I just pivoted my finger a little bit. So instead of shooting with the index finger, I shot with the middle finger. And that was working. Is that comfortable for you with that camera?
No.
Oh,
No, I cannot get a good grip on this camera like that. There's no way. There's
you
no way
can't
I
bring
could do that.
your ring finger and your pinky finger up a little bit?
I mean, I would be holding the camera like this if I'd done that
Oh
to be able
man.
to do that. And even then, bringing my you can't really see it. Bringing my thumb into the dial, it's almost impossible.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's a, I wish what they would have done instead, if they wanted to innovate, because this dial is so small and this screen is so huge, why not just make this screen the whole back and make it completely touch interface? Because this camera has got great touch interaction. One thing I will say about it, the menus are completely touch compatible. Every feature on the camera can be changed via touch. So why not get rid of this and just make it touch?
That's actually a solid point.
I mean,
So
there's yeah, I mean the screen is great.
so that means there's no joystick, right?
No joystick.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you have to use
Yep.
like your finger to do like the thing of
Yep.
choosing the focusing point.
You got it up, down, left, and right on the control wheel. Yeah,
I'm sort
it's
of
a mixed bag. This
disappointed.
camera.
Yeah, because like I remember whoa, what is going on? I'm gonna stop his video. I remember that, you know, during the presentation that I was seeing, it seemed like there was a lot of hope for this camera, but now I don't really know. Like,
Yeah.
in order for them to, it sounds like in order for them to really sell this during the holidays, they're going to have to majorly drop the price.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with that. Um, it's almost like, to me, they tried so hard to make it the perfect hybrid camera, but they made too many compromises, and it falls short on both videography and photography.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's a real shame because, like I said, I had pretty high hopes for this little camera.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I remember reading the rumors about it and people getting like really super hyped for this camera because they were like,
Hmm.
"Oh man, this is really what I wanted." And now like, you know,
Yeah.
geez.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. The fact that the autofocus is inconsistent and the no IBIS, which is so stupid to me, to take out one of the best features of the entire platform, of the Micro Four Thirds platform, to remove that's just a deal breaker for me.
No, I agree with you. And I mean like, do you remember, can you guys hear those fireworks?
Yeah.
Let me close my window. I'm sorry. Actually, you know what? Whatever. They'll end eventually.
Yeah, it's all good.
Um I was going to say, what's the longest shutter speed that you handheld with that camera?
Probably about 1/20th, maybe 1/125th.
Do you think you can give it a try right now? See if you can do a second and see what happens?
Sure.
All right. We have a live demonstration from Brett right now.
1 second. There we
Yeah.
go. That's all kinds of blurry.
Oh no.
Yep. Yep. The IBIS. This camera really misses the IBIS.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah. And I don't know if you heard that terrible shutter noise.
Yeah, I did.
Let me do that again so you can hear it properly.
Yeah.
The shutter noise on this camera, there's 3 different shutter noises you can pick from, and they all sound like they come from a $10 toy camera.
Yeah.
There you go. You hear that?
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible, and the other ones are way worse. Here we go. Is that one? There's this one, and there's the third one.
Wow.
They sound like a Fisher Price toy camera.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they're terrible. It drove me nuts. I just turned them off eventually.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know quite what they were thinking with this camera, in all honesty.
Did you try silent shooting mode in that camera?
Yeah.
Did you see any problems with banding at all?
Not really.
That's good to know.
Yeah, not anything terrible, at least.
I don't know. I'm just sitting here thinking, like, why would someone make a camera that really only majorly functions well in good lighting in 2020?
Right. Absolutely.
That makes no sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense. And it shouldn't be happening in 2020. We should have cameras that can, even with contrast detect systems, we've seen it with other cameras. Like I go back to the Olympus EM10-4, they completely reworked their algorithms, and even in extreme low light, that camera was able to get focus.
Mm-hmm.
This one is the complete opposite. So I don't know what happened.
Well, I mean, I have to edit your review, and I'll probably schedule up for this week or like next week or something like that. But you know, this sounds very disappointing. But you were saying that you're not even sure you would use it as a second camera, and
right. At this price point, I would go with something else.
Yeah, no, you probably go with an EM10 Mark IV then, it seems like, right?
Go with an EM10 Mark IV if you wanted to stay micro four thirds, or if you're in the 750 to 800 ballpark, man, you can pick up the Fujifilm X-T200 for $500 right now. You can get the Sony A6100 for $748, and those two cameras are significantly better than this one.
No, that makes sense. The X-T200, I remember, did not have weather sealing, right?
Didn't have weather sealing, correct.
But it had that giant screen.
Right. And a better autofocus and a better sensor.
And dim tones, right? Like that's
tones,
actually
man.
On the package, right? Dim tones.
There you go.
Let's see if we had any questions. We didn't have any questions here on Zoom. Let's see Facebook very quickly. It does not seem like we had any questions on Facebook, but let me renew or refresh rather. Nope, no questions on Facebook. So all right, let's wrap up this segment. Thank you, Brett, for talking about this.